Moving on to more about our smart home part of the presentation, we're so pleased to have with us certified building biologist, environmental consultant, Risa Suzuki. So with that, I would like to begin her introduction. That Risa Suzuki is the published author of a brand new book, and I've had the pleasure of reading it. It is just top-notch, highly, highly recommended. It's called What the EMF? And how to protect your home from EMF exposure, improve sleep, reduce anxiety, and live a happier, healthier life. It's just jam-packed. She's written it based on her own experience, what people have asked her questions about, and she's addressed it in a very easy to understand way. So it's just a wonderful addition to the books of this nature out there. And thank you, Risa, for doing that. And in addition, she's a certified building biology environmental consultant. She specializes in removing harmful electromagnetic fields, or EMFs, created from our everyday electronics to improve sleep quality, increase energy, and reduce chronic and inflammation-related symptoms. To learn more about her services and how she can help you, go to her website, risasuzuki.com. We will post a link to her website down in the comments section below, along with a lot of other related information for you. Message there on chat. But Risa, thank you so much for your patience. We are so pleased to have you with us. But if I may start off with a question that it might seem a little remedial, but what makes, in your opinion, what makes a smart home smart? Is there some sort of parameter that, separates this breed, this smart home, from not so smart homes?
So yeah, so smart home. So there's actually two types of smart homes. So there's the one, I call them the centrally managed smart home. So that's going to be a house that is designed to have smart home technology implemented in it. So that usually means that there's some sort of a command center. I call it the technology mothership, and it's usually it looks like those old-fashioned server racks, from like 15 years ago. So you have these big, huge, it looks like almost like a square bookcase, and you've got all of these different electronics that are hooked up, and that's kind of the brain of the smart home. So it'll talk to, let's say, your HVAC system. It'll talk to your security system, lights and switches and all sorts of things. So those actually create a huge amount of radiation, right? Because it has to talk to everything in the house. So for example, if you have a large house, it has to be able to send out, well, one, it has to be powered, and it has to have enough power and send out signals that are strong enough that can be received by all of the different areas of the home. So that's what I call a centrally managed house. And then there's the other smart home devices that are probably more common, right? Because if you have an older house, you're not necessarily going to rip everything out so that you can install something like this. And that's where you have your light switches, your lights, your security system, your doorbell, and those are just basically added in. Those will talk to your wireless router or your booster, whatever point it's connecting to, so that you can see who's at your doorstep. So it's kind of like what I call a hybrid system. So does that answer your question?
It does, very well. I wasn't actually expecting the two types, but that makes total sense. And it sounds like with the first one, you were describing what I come to understand is called a little bit of a hub situation, a central control, almost like a mini Internet of Things for your home, where everything talks with one another. So that's really interesting. lots of questions around that. But wondering if you'd like to share a little bit about whether you've been engaged by clients who are considering purchasing a smart home, and what sort of concerns do they have as they're looking at this, whether or not they're aware of any bioeffects associated from this technology.
Usually they are. So by the time people come to me, they have an idea that, you know, Wi-Fi, power lines, et cetera, that there are health effects. They just aren't sure, you know, like I had a colleague who was looking to buy a home, and he said, okay, I'm looking at buying this house. What do you think? And then he said, okay, I want a binary answer. Is this house going to kill me? Yes or no? So of course I wrote back, well, of course we're all going to die eventually, but um, like they don't know what to look for and really what the impact is. And so, when you look at a smart home, you want to look at, does it have this mothership, and how many smart home technology or devices are there? Is it lights and switches, a watering system, appliances, and can they turn them off, and where are they placed? Because that can also make a huge difference as well.
Right. That makes perfect sense too. And I've had a little bit of experience with raising awareness about smart meters, the digital meters, as you know, and
Yep,
they've been described, as you probably know as well, as potentially being the first device that attaches our home to the smart grid.
yep, yep.
Um, Smart cities, and they emit the same type of radiation. And because these are being forced on, as you know, of course, residential and commercial buildings all over the planet, that they're there, and they're a force to be reckoned with. And some of these larger homes, I wouldn't be surprised if they have more than one smart meter to take care of different zones in their homes. But probably threw too many curves in the question. How do smart meters enter into the smart home scenario? What are
Into
concerns for them? Are children particularly impacted? Things like that.
well, I mean, the smart home technology is it's connected to, but it's also separate from smart meters, because smart meters really, they just measure your utility usage, right? And the issue, of course, is that they're wireless. They create a lot of radiation. It goes inside the house plus outside if you live, depending on if you're in a shared environment, meaning like an apartment complex, condo, anything like that, or if you live in the city and you have a single family home and you're surrounded by houses. I've measured houses where the neighbor's smart meter was coming in through a window or the door, and it was like thousands of microwatts per meter squared, because the new smart meters are much stronger than the ones even just a few years ago. And
Hmm.
so those, that's really just your think of it just as your utility usage, but they can also talk to all of your smart appliances, right? Because it's all digital. They're going to have some, in their chip, they're going to have information. So you're also going to have, it's more privacy concerns. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. And I understand from the industry, like the former chairman of FCC, Tom Wheeler, he's very ready to say, what we really are going to make our money off of is selling the usage data to
Oh, I know.
third-party investors.
Right,
So,
right.
that's definitely a concern, but they don't like to tell us that.
Of
Um,
course not.
so, they're they're glamorizing and normalizing it, and they're not giving us the downside on that. So,
Yeah, it's very, very detailed. If you think about it, right, what information does the utility company have on you? They have your, wherever you live, it's going to be your socioeconomic, and assumed status, of course. But when you use, your products, your washer, your dryer, your water, that kind of thing. The other thing is that the utility companies, they purchase, they estimate how much usage that they're going to have, 6 to 12 months or however many months in advance. So this also gives them better data to calculate how much they are going to need And of course, the more accurate they are, then they also save money on that. The other thing, as we're talking about just the smart technology and the smart meters, it's all cumulative radiation. So you have this smart meter on your house. If you have solar panels, the solar panels, you also have an additional smart meter because you have to calculate your usage so that it can talk to the utility company and say, hey, here's how much power this house generated, and here's, how much you should charge them for their net electricity or whatever. Then if you have, additional smart gadgets in your home, that's even more radiation. And so, and as you know, it's a cumulative effect. It's not like catching a cold and you get sick for a couple of days and then you're better, right?
That's the thing, right? Especially with children. And so many
Exactly.
people don't know that. And yeah, you're right. And as I understand from someone who installs smart meters and is very uh, solar panels actually, and is very familiar with the smart meters, Cal Washington, co-founder of Empower Movement, that he has said that unless you're planning on selling your energy back that the solar panels collect, you do not have to accept that additional smart meter. That they don't tell you that, but you can say, no, I'm not planning on selling it, so I don't need a smart meter for my solar panels. Is that what you're understanding, Risa? Or
I don't know actually.
right?
Usually my clients, they'll ask about, they'll just ask about solar and what exactly is going to happen if they install it. And
Right.
most of them actually opt to not install it just because of the dirty electricity and the magnetic fields and having to, just deal and mitigate that. They're just like, oh,
Absolutely, and I understand from about the solar panels that that not all smart homes that they have the solar panel arrays and they're being run by a high powered Wi-Fi system,
right.
and it's a major fire hazard due to the dirty electricity, as you said, and electrical transients that are the inevitable byproducts of the system, and
Yeah.
these side effects are making people sick, aren't they?
Yep. Yeah.
From that. And is dirty electricity a topic you'd care to delve into, or is that something that maybe we could include a link for people to understand more about how that comes from our electrical currents? Or
So I'll touch on it just a little bit because it's kind of like opening Pandora's box.
it is.
You know what I mean? Because
Brush over that. I do. I do.
so if you don't know what dirty electricity is, think of it as when your electricity comes into your house. Theoretically, your electrical current is this really nice, smooth power wave, right? But it's really not because there's you just the nature of having electricity delivered to your home. You have all sorts of harmonics just as it's delivered to your house. When you have something like and I don't have anything here in front of me, but like if you have your iPhone charger or a laptop charger, if you were to just plug that into the wall and there wasn't any way to decrease the amount of electricity coming from that outlet into your phone or your laptop, it would probably explode because it's too much electricity. So the little square, the white square, if you're an iPhone user, that steps down the power, and it also converts it from electricity into power. It's called DC. So it's operating off of a battery. And so what that does is it takes this, theoretically smooth sine wave and it scrunches it down. And when it does that, it's very messy and it creates, instead of this nice smooth line, it'll be jagged. And so that's the harmonics. And you get that from just about anything in your house. So any kind of chargers, anything that has like a variable speed, so like a hair dryer, a washing machine, blenders, right? Because it has different speeds. And then when you have Wi-Fi, so anything that's radio frequency, so that's going to be your modem. It's going to be if you have boosters, if you have cordless phones, any Bluetooth devices like wireless speakers. Those also, when you plug them in, you have this really super high frequency, and then megahertz or gigahertz. Megahertz is millions of cycles per second. Gigahertz is billions, and your electricity is at 60 hertz. So you have this super high frequency, just kind of scrunched on top of your 60 hertz wave, which is your electricity. that also creates harmonics. And when you have the solar panels, the solar panels themselves create dirty electricity. And and the thing about dirty electricity too is that it doesn't apply just to, let's say I'm charging my cell phone. It doesn't apply to just that particular outlet. It's going to apply to that whole circuit that outlet is on. When it's coming into your house, it's pretty much going to be running throughout your house. So that's the short explanation of dirty electricity.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And you touched upon something that, well, actually, to back up just a little bit, when we're having your session here, Risa, is so invaluable. A while back, if you'll recall, I posted a photo about a major TV network was running. They run a contest to win their smart home of the year. And this particular home, if you'll recall, was featuring 17 of these smart gadgets products throughout the home. Do you remember I asked you if you would care to take a guesstimate what the
I do.
levels were? And I have it down in a quote that I don't have it in front of me, but you were talking about the level of the microwatts per meter squared,
Yeah.
and how it was just virtually, it was so difficult to unsmart or dumb down a smart house, and why. I think that would be very interesting if you recall sharing a little bit about that.
Yeah, I actually had a client they had a smart home, and when you have a smart switch, it's not a traditional switch. So you don't have, it's not like you pop off the plate and then you've got, the wires there. It's a digital switch, right? Because it's talking to the mothership, the command center, and so you have to. It's like unwinding a knot, a big ball of yarn or something, because you have to basically go back and see which piece of the mothership it connects to, and then you have to replace it with a traditional switch. So
Right.
this one client, it took them, I want to say, like 6 or 7 months, and it was a very large house, but it was not. It wasn't a super easy, simple, straightforward process. And those light switches, so if you've got those light switches, they transmit, at least this one house or this manufacturer, those light switches were transmitting about every 20 seconds, and it was about 18,000 microwatts per meter squared. And this was a good couple of years ago. So, you know, of course, I know the technology has changed and everything, but if you think about what building code is today and how many light switches, dimmers, et cetera, you have around your house, and being surrounded by something that is transmitting that often.